You're watching Race to Power. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. The big Modi-Trump meeting has happened. It's a historic meeting for very many reasons because remember, it comes amidst strained India-United States ties. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi made sure that he picked up and raised certain issues that have been concerning Indians as far as the Iran war is concerned. President Trump, on the other hand, praising Prime Minister Modi, whether calling him a beautiful man, but calling him a tough negotiator in the same breath, also saying that under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, we will not let anybody attack India. So it's a complete reset of ties, something which was, much awaited from both sides, India and United States, amid the kind of tensions that have prevailed over the last few months. There have been several statements that have been made. But let me quickly capitulate for you what happened in this bilateral meeting. It was a lengthy one where Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the safety of Indian seafarers is of utmost importance. Remember, this has been a big concern. There was outrage, there was anger across India after those 3 Indian seafarers were killed in the Strait of Hormuz. On the other hand, President Donald Trump, when he was asked about Indian seafarers being killed, he said, look, it's sad, it's something that should not have happened. And that is all that he said. Now, as far as, the personal bonhomie between the two leaders is concerned, remember, President Donald Trump said that he has visited India in the past and there was record-breaking numbers of people who attended an event where both Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump were there. He went on to say that the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, is a beautiful man, but he's a tough negotiator, obviously referring to the fact that, the trade deal is being negotiated between both the sides. And he also said that we will have it very soon. Let me quickly go across to my colleague Siddhant Sibbal, who was at this press conference by the two leaders in France. Siddhant, finally, we have a resetting of ties happening. President Donald Trump praising Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling him a beautiful man, saying he's a tough negotiator, also saying that if at all anybody attacks India under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, America will not let that happen. On the other hand, Prime Minister Modi bringing up a very important issue that has caused outrage across India for the past several days, the killing of the 3 Indian seafarers.
Well, yes, Shreya, I'm just leaving that bilateral room. A bit of commotion and chaos around me, but that's how things are usually when it's summits. But quite experience in many ways in terms of the U.S. President taking every question and the big concern for India, the safety of seafarers. He clearly made some remarks. But the big remark, of course, was when it comes to the trade deal, as to how the trade deal is something that he is looking forward to. We can also expect perhaps a joint statement later on, but it depends as to how things happen.
Siddhant, one of the questions that you also asked President Trump was on energy, where he said that India can do anything with the US and that we have a friendly relationship with India. And we know since the past several months, starting with the fact that the Trump administration has imposed tariffs on particularly the purchase of Russian oil on India, has been quite a concern for all of us here in India. And now President Trump saying that, India can do anything with the US, clearly reflecting that some sort of headway has been made as far as energy supply is concerned.
Well, yes, India has been diversifying its energy supplies, and in response to WION question, he basically said that India can get whatever it wants. Now, when it comes to energy supplies, we know that the focus is on a long-term energy partnership. But WION question was also on his visit. Of course, he ducked the question on Quad. I several times tried to ask him about Quad, but clearly he was not very forthcoming. When it comes to the question on his visit, he recalled his previous visit. Overall, the sense in the room was he was quite happy in terms of the relationship. He's looking forward to a reset in the relationship. How things happen is the big question. It looks like it could take some time before there is a certain normalcy, but today's meeting perhaps could be a start in terms of a larger reset in the relationship. That is what I get a feel of being inside that room. All the delegates from the Indian side, from the American side were present, and focus, of course, was that as to how both sides can work in tandem. The trade deal, of course, remains the big question. when, how it will happen is also another big question. Officials have told us that they're quite optimistic that a trade deal can come into being as early as few weeks.
Yeah, Siddhant, I'm going to come back to you. You settle in, you get outside of that briefing room. Let me quickly get an update for our viewers. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, WION was present inside the briefing room where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump held this press conference. Listen in to what Donald Trump said to the questions asked by Siddhant Sibbal. Quickly, take a listen.
How do you see energy cooperation? India is diversifying, buying more energy from across the world, including United States. I'm Siddhant Sibbal from WION. How do you see India buying energy from you?
India can do anything they want with us. We have the best relationship. We cannot be closer than we are. Would you say that, sir? I don't think we can be any closer. Both him and I and our nations, but it really starts with the two of us. We cannot be closer.
President Trump, when will you go to India and how do you see Quad as well? This is a grouping that was started under your first term, and this is a grouping that all the four countries are looking forward to.
Well, we had a great visit last time in India. We opened up that new stadium, and I think there were 400,000 people. It seated like about 150,000, and there were 250,000 outside, and there were 100,000 on the grass. That was, I don't know if that record's ever been broken, but I had a great time in India.
All right, let me quickly go across to our correspondent, Susan Tehrani. She's joining us live from New York. Susan, you know, a lot that was said by President Donald Trump, really this is being seen here in India as the start of the resetting of the ties that have been strained between India and United States of America in the past few months. What is the sense that America has at the moment? Clearly, there has been an outreach on part of Donald Trump towards the Indian Prime Minister. You know, the kind of praises that have come in today, calling him a beautiful man, but a tough negotiator, obviously referencing to the trade deal. But what's the sense that you get as far as the Trump administration is concerned, looking at resetting relationship with India?
Yeah, first of all, great job by WION's Siddhant Sibbal, really getting so many answers from the President of the United States in that hectic environment that we all even watched across the border here in the United States. I do want to say that it appears that the Trump administration, despite the fact that President Trump has been adamant in talking favorably about Prime Minister Modi, even from his first term, and of course it's clear that he considers Prime Minister Modi a friend, there were, you know, some wrinkles when it came to trade and those tariffs that we saw a few months ago. And it appears that the Trump administration now is understanding that India is a vital ally to the United States and has to reset relations. And I think we saw that in the messaging of President Trump to the media and sitting next to Prime Minister Modi. I think the administration as a whole is really reaching that conclusion that this reset has to be made, that relations with India have been extremely valuable and to a great extent beneficial for the United States as well economically, and also people-to-people relation. We saw a question posed regarding, you know, Indians getting working visas, coming in the United States, working in the private sector. President Trump really applauded that as well. We'll see how far that goes. And he also said that a trade deal is expected to be signed very soon. So I think there's a great deal of optimism, not only from the administration, but at least from the people as well, and from the Democrats as well, who were very concerned that this relationship, this strategic partnership was building for years and it was in jeopardy. But now I think there's a sigh of relief that this administration understands how important and vital that is for both sides.
You know, Susan, it's also interesting, while we talk about how Donald Trump and his administration realized the importance of India as an ally, one of the questions that he was asked was India's role in the Iran war, whether India can help, to which the US president said that India can help everywhere. And that reflects the kind of value that Donald Trump holds India in.
Yeah, and remember, you know, we did also see him somewhat praise Xi Jinping. But, you know, this reset comes shortly after President Trump visited China. And you can't look at that as in a vacuum. He understands that he has to rely on his trusted allies like India if he's going to continue with America's competition with China. And I think that is also a very important point, that in the Indo-Pacific region, the United States, under President Trump's first term, really established the Quad. And now they are seeing that, the establishment of those relationships, notably with India, how detrimental they are in America's other businesses around the world, notably in dealing with China. So I think that's very important. There is a heavy reliance on India as an ally. And I thought it was interesting that he said that, India can help when it comes to the Iran issue. But he said, I don't want to waste their time. Really signaling that, on the one hand, perhaps the Trump administration thinks that things are patched up with Iran, but on the other hand, perhaps looking a lot further into the future on how India and the United States can cooperate on other issues, notably the freedom of navigation in the Indo-Pacific region. That is so important right now after we saw how important these waterways are.
That's right, Susan. And, while we talk about how there's a sense of optimism now, and this has really kick-started some sort of stability coming in the India-US ties, there's also been a deep trust deficit in the past few months between both the sides. And that will take a long time to sort of fill in and really have that trust rebuilt to think that what President Trump is saying will be implemented in action.
Yeah, absolutely. Actions speak louder than words, and the devil's always in the detail when it comes to these kind of trade deals. And I don't think there's anyone in the United States here that would blame India for having a sense of mistrust toward the United States. And remember, President Trump, this is not the first time that he has praised Prime Minister Modi and has lauded their friendship. Even throughout those wrinkles in relationship, notably when it came to trade, President Trump also always said that he had a very good relationship with Prime Minister Modi. And I think that is a genuine sentiment that he has. And he feels, at least on his part, that friendship has not tarnished in any kind of way. And this is sort of business as usual. But then again, actions, as you mentioned, speak louder than words. What we saw in reality was that a lot of things did change in the past few months, notably in the beginning of the second term of the Trump administration. And absolutely, it's going to take a long time, not only to see how these deals are implemented at the end of the day, but also whether or not America can be a stable and reliable partner from India. But to end on an optimistic note, I think that what we saw from the president right now and just the manner that the two leaders were sitting next to each other, they're on very good terms.
Yeah. Susan, stay with me. Let me also quickly bring in my colleague Siddhant Sibbal. He's been in France. He was there present in the briefing room where the two leaders held this bilateral meeting. Siddhant, what's the sense that you got? There was a lot of bonhomie. There was friendship. President Trump said a lot of good things about Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Can we say now how we say in Hindi that this is the Shubh Arambh, the good start, the auspicious start to the resetting of the ties?
Well, Shreya, I just came inside the room near the hotel where the bilateral was happening. It was absolutely exhilarating. We, of course, waited for almost 1 hour. It's quite hot. It's Europe, yes, but it was quite hot outside the bilateral room. But as soon as we went inside the bilateral room, the leaders made the opening remarks. And then, of course, it was open for Q&A. He took questions from everyone, including, of course, WION. And I pressed on Quad because Quad is something that Donald Trump hasn't uttered so far. He completely dug that question. But clearly, when it comes to other aspects, whether it's energy, whether it's India visit, he was quite optimistic. He was quite keen on all these subjects. When it comes to energy, he basically replied saying that, yes, I'll give India whatever India wants. He also went to say that I will defend India if India is attacked. That's a pretty strong statement. But it was a typical Trump-style press conference, open to all, and everyone can ask anything. And Donald Trump, of course, was keen to send a message that India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are great friends. In fact, to question over the seafarers, he said that clearly it's a tough profession, but essentially that was the elephant in the room. The Indian Prime Minister pressed on that issue and called on the safety, emphasized on the safety, pressed on the safety of the Indian seafarers, highlighted that how Hormuz situation impacts India. Of course, he lauded the US president for his role in the Iran peace deal. But overall, the sense in the room, being in that room for almost 20 minutes when the press statement was underway, was that he was keen to reach out to India, engage with India, and let past be past. I think if I would sum up the 2 days here in Iran, where we saw the G7 summit, we saw initially there was a chill in the photo of which we saw, but then both leaders had a conversations yesterday, a brief conversation, and that led to a larger meeting, a bilateral meeting that was, of course, pre-scheduled. We will see more engagement. Remember that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to travel to United States, to Florida in December for the G20 summit. We also know that there will be more engagements, including the visit of the USTR to India next week. And trade deal looks like an easy, low-hanging fruit. In fact, ahead of the press conference, while I was trying to make my way into the press room, we bumped into the US Ambassador Sergio Gore, who was quite happy to say that he sees India-US relationship as something that is only going to grow further. And that, of course, sums up the relationship in many ways. Sergio Gore is being credited for leading the relationship from the ground in New Delhi. He's a person who's seen as leading the situation on the ground. So clearly an important development.
Right, Siddhant, apart from Prime Minister Modi, President Donald Trump also had a compliment for all of you Indian reporters. He told Prime Minister Modi that your reporters are better than mine. So it's been a good day for the India-US relationship. I'm going to thank you here, Siddhant. Thanks very much. We'll keep coming back to you for the latest from France. And with that, let me also thank Susan Tehrani, my colleague who had joined us from New York. She was, of course, giving us a perspective of what America and the Trump administration thinks of this relationship. But let's quickly play out for you Donald Trump's response to the questions that were asked by WION's Siddhant Sibbal. Take a listen.
How do you see energy cooperation? India is diversifying, buying more energy from across the world, including United States. I'm Siddhant Sibbal from WION. How do you see India buying energy from you?
India can do anything they want with us. We have the best relationship. We cannot be closer than we are. Would you say that, sir? I don't think we can be any closer. Both him and I and our nations, but it really starts with the two of us. We cannot be closer.
President Trump, when will you go to India and how do you see Quad as well? This is a grouping that was started under your first term, and this is a grouping that all the four countries are looking forward to.
Well, we had a great visit last time in India. We opened up that new stadium, and I think there were 400,000 people. It seated like about 150,000, and there were 250,000 outside, and there were 100,000 on the grass. That was, I don't know if that record's ever been broken, but I had a great time in India.